Welcome to the latest edition of our Talk Death video series, where you get the chance to ask experts your questions about all things death and dying.
A reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to follow us on Instagram at TalkDeath Daily for your daily dose of death positivity.
Today's guest is Cassandra Yonder, a fellow Canadian advocating for community-centered death care. Cassandra wants to encourage cultural re-engagement with dying, death care, and grief.
Cassandra runs one of the largest Facebook groups dedicated to alternative death care practices, as well as deathcaring.ca, a virtual school for community death caring. Check out the description below to learn more about Cassandra and deathcaring.ca.
Welcome, Cassandra.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Totally. I feel like we almost, first of all, need to change our language. That's something that, even just in writing articles for TalkDeath.com, I often find myself changing words like loss to death and like forcing myself to do that as the editor because we write these things and we don't even realize it and how, almost death denying this language is. So I think that's really interesting. And that's something that, even as like a death positive or death focused publication, that's something that we even still struggle with. So I think that's super interesting. And that's something that we should all sort of realize as well.
Totally. And I think it's worth really sitting with that internal process that you're going through when you're editing your stuff and you say, holy smokes, like I used passed away. I mean, like, what is that? Because you can really look at, like, what are you touching there in yourself? I mean, you feel so death positive and still there's this denial and acceptance that you can hold at the same time, right? So I think it's always worth it to keep investigating in yourself, like what caused me to write that and how does it feel to actually come forward and be willing to be more honest and direct? Who am I afraid of hurting? What am I afraid of in other people? Like what vulnerabilities in me is this touching?
I feel like in some ironic way, it almost presupposes this normative idea of how death should be accepted, which is what the death positive movement is trying to move away from, right? It's trying to move away from these normative understandings of death and dying, but at the same time, it's also advancing its own normative definitions of death.
And I think it's also a lot of people, it doesn't just mean that you've accepted death and, okay, I'm good, like I'm death positive, I'm happy, I'm fine. Because at the end of the day, I feel like it's a journey and it's a struggle and it's gonna end at your deathbed, literally, So I think that's really interesting because it's something that I still think about often and struggle with, even when I'm literally, working a funeral, it's something that I still, stop and think all the time. So yeah, it's ongoing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I attended a workshop by Stephen Jenkinson, and he sort of said at the beginning of the workshop, if you don't realize you're here because of your own death denial, then you're more death denying than all those people who you're out there trying to help. And that really hit me. So I guess he touched a nerve. I guess he was right. But I think it's this idea that, for me, it relates to the idea that death really is about change. And I think that if we look at ourselves, all the ways that we try to prevent change or control change is the same ways that we try to prevent and control death. And I think this idea of mastery is one of them. And so when we do things like we're doing right now, sitting here with headphones and official, technology, I feel like, the three of us, even right now, are denying death in a way of sort of saying, like, we're okay with it. We have some deeper understanding than some of those other folks who are afraid to use the D word. And it's just all like, like you said, Mandy, it's dynamic. It's just, we have to, go through our journeys. I think I'm especially maybe sensitive to the idea of denial because as a grief counselor, I'm so aware of what a crucial and important and precious role denial plays in bereavement. We don't simply sort of just accept death, like you said, one day and then you're good to go. It's not, it's not a stage like we learned in Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's work. It's something that is like, ever shifting and confusing. It's, it goes all over the place. There's a lot of dynamic interplay.